I haven't built one of these since I looked like this. My middle school years weren't my best, but they were full of watching awesome shows like Mobile Fighter G Gundam on Toonami, which was so mind-blowingly cool it compelled me to get into Gundam model kits. I loved building them. They were always a challenge that provided so much satisfaction when they were complete. But I grew up, my priorities changed, and I stopped building Gundam. Now, I'm an adult with a YouTube channel about making action figure dioramas. So it's time to grab the nippers, pick up the Gundam markers, and revive my love for these giant Japanese mechs from my childhood. But this time, it's not just about the Gundam. I'm also building my first Gunpla diorama. First, we need to build Shining Gundam though, which was a Christmas gift from my in-laws. After doing some YouTube research to get reacquainted with Gundam model kit building, I purchased these tools to help me build and paint Shining Gundam. Then I cracked open the box and flipped through the instructions, which are in a language I can't read. Japanese. But the build steps are outlined with detailed images, so that wasn't really a problem. The first step was to build the core lander, the hovercraft used to transport Domon Kashu, the protagonist of G Gundam, from the ground into the Shining Gundam. So he can do this: pilot the Gundam in the most unique way of any Gundam series using this bodysuit. After snapping a few pieces together, it was built. Very simple and a confidence boost for someone who hasn't built a kit like this in 2 decades. So I kept going. If you're not familiar with Mobile Fighter G Gundam, it's a bold twist on the classic Gundam formula. Released in 1994, it reimagines the franchise in a future century where global conflicts are settled through a massive martial arts tournament called the Gundam Fight. Each nation sends a fighter piloting a unique Gundam to Earth, battling for the right to rule the colonies until the next tournament. The story follows Domon Kashu, Neo Japan's pilot of the Shining Gundam, as he fights his way through the 13th Gundam fight, not just to win, but to uncover the truth behind his brother's connection to the stolen and dangerous Dark Gundam. It's part political drama, part mech brawler, and all-out anime spectacle. It also happens to be my very favorite entry into the Gundam franchise of the different Gundam series I have seen. I remember watching the show every day after school with my brothers in an awesome block of Toonami that combined Dragon Ball, Gundam, and other awesome shows. If you haven't seen it, I would highly suggest giving it a watch. It's got great animation, incredible music, and in my opinion, the English dub has a really great voice acting cast led by Mark Gatha, who plays Domon. Back in those days, my brothers and I would grab the G Gundam model kits, build them, and then reenact the battles we saw on the show. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those old model kits anymore, but I would love to see them because we didn't use nippers or any other tools to build them, so I'm sure they look pretty rough. But we didn't care because it was just about having fun and completing the challenge of the build. Okay, Shining Gundam is built, but the Gundam isn't done though. I'll need to paint and panel line him later, but for now it's time to switch my focus and show you how I made this. A Gundam Hangar where Shining Gundam can exist when he's not using Shining Finger on hopeless opponents. I created this CAD design of the diorama in 1 to 1/44 scale, which is the scale of this high-grade Shining Gundam model kit. Then I laser cut and 3D printed the appropriate parts using my X-Tool S1 and Bamboo P1P. And now I have what is basically a Gundam Hangar model kit that I designed. The process for building this is similar to what I did to assemble the Gundam, except I'm going to need some glue to get my pieces bonded this time. Specifically wood glue for the MDF pieces. These carpenter squares I got on Amazon come in handy on these kinds of projects, helping to ensure everything lines up square and sets in place properly. These were pretty sturdy, but I wanted to reinforce them even more. I broke out the miter box and cut a few MDF scraps by hand. Then I glued them in place and clamped them while the glue cured. And after some dry time, they're ready for paint prep, which I do with Miniwax wood stain. This stuff provides a barrier on top of the MDF, which doesn't paint well as a raw material. The wood stain barrier allows the paint to adhere to the MDF. When that dried, I spray painted all the wall pieces with Rust-Oleum Slate Gray and then used automotive primer of a lighter gray tone to give the piece a zenithal highlight. Here's how things looked after that step. Off camera, I used these spray paint colors to base coat all of my pieces. To assemble the detail pieces, I relied on a different glue called Hotwire Foam Factory Styro Goo, my favorite all-purpose glue. With a little help from my carpenter squares, I lined everything up accurately. I also took the opportunity to glue my mini platforms and railings together. Earlier you may have noticed that this hangar has functional lights. In order to accommodate the lights, I needed to build a light box roof piece where my LEDs would permanently live. I did that with more laser cut MDF, wood glue, and clamps. That had to dry, so I maximized the dry time by sealing the paintwork on the other pieces of the diorama, because I planned to panel line them with an oil wash, which I had never done before. I understood that oil washes are usually made up of oil paint and mineral spirits. I had mineral spirits in my garage, but unfortunately they expired in 2014, which made for a globby, unusable mess. Luckily I had a backup plan, a black Gundam marker. I think this was a blessing in disguise because doing the panel lines on my diorama first proved to be valuable practice before trying to panel line the Gundam, which I had never done before and will show you in a few minutes. It was good to make some mistakes here on the base of the diorama, learn from them, and improve as I went along. I removed as much of the mistakes as possible with isopropyl alcohol and then attempted to mask them with a black acrylic water-based wash. Then I panel lined the walls with a better understanding of the marker and added on some metallic highlights, hand brushing the edges with acrylic silver. I repeated the panel lining and metallic highlights on the other pieces. I wanted it to look like the Gundam Hangar was well used but not damaged. At this point the light box was dry and off camera I stained it, but I thought it looked really plain. I found some failed 3D prints from old projects and glued them on as detailed pieces. Then I spray painted the light box pieces slate gray off camera and started doing some detailing on the paint job by hand. You've probably noticed I haven't glued the pieces together yet, and that's because of a problem I discovered. I forgot to laser cut a space for me to access the battery pack of my light source, so I fixed that and tested the LEDs. And then I started gluing pieces together strategically and decided to get the lights installed as I do so. I also took the opportunity to add more metallic hand painted detail on the front of the light box. I glued in some cut opaque Dollar Tree vegetable cutting mats to diffuse the wall lighting and cut up some white project foam and installed it inside the walls to reflect my light and enhance the glow. At this point it was time to glue the light box on top of the diorama, which I did in 2 steps. This single plate first and then the rest of the light box. When it was fully dried, I flipped it over and installed these 3D printed reinforcement beams, which I think really add to the look of this piece. This was also the point I chose to glue the base plate onto the hangar. Final step was to lightly weather the mini platforms and final detail pieces and glue them in place. Okay, the diorama is complete, but Shining Gundam isn't. I disassembled him and started panel lining. I started with the bottoms of his feet, dabbing the ink into the panel line crevices, and then using a rag and a Q-tip with some isopropyl alcohol to remove the excess. Then I started making my way up the Gundam from toe to head using that same process, learning how to improve with each piece I did. And I definitely kept the instruction manual near me as my guide for which areas to panel line. That really helped. Here's how Shining Gundam looks after panel lining. Pretty cool, and you might think he's done, but no. Because what would Shining Gundam be without super mode? These pieces needed to be painted gold. So I spray painted them outside with a rattle can. I love how clean that looks. I did consider using the provided stickers on the shoulders, but it didn't match the look of the pieces I painted, so the only stickers I used on this were the eye stickers off camera and these stickers for his legs. Then I used some Tamiya tape to mask off the red parts of his shoulder pauldrons to try the scariest part of this basic paint job, spray painting the inner areas gold. What happened next kind of shocked me. Moment of truth here. I can't believe how good this looks. Let's go! I was really worried that I would get some bleed onto the red. I can feel my hands burning with an awesome power, but he's still not ready to go super mode. Not without the super mode head, which I still needed to panel line. I think I did a better job paneling the other head, but all in all, this looks good to me. Before I show you the full power of his super mode, I did want to add in some light weathering and battle damage on this. Similar to what I did on the diorama, I wanted him to look slightly worn, not all out damaged, but like he saw recent battle action. So I used some acrylic silver and a fine tipped brush to gently apply paint to many of the edges of the Gundam, which was super satisfying to paint and a lot easier than you might think. This was my first time doing anything like this, and I think it came out really cool. In order to seal all my paintwork, I used this Mr. Hobby sealer on the entire Gundam and then let it have some time to cure.
Let's get things started! Gundam fight all set! Ready? Go!
Mobile trace system checking brainwaves, blood pressure, pulse, respiration, temperature, metabolism. All green.
I'm really proud of this project, and I think in the end I made something my younger self would be extremely proud of. If you're a kid who's watching this, enjoy the things you love, and don't worry about what other people think of them. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this project and that you'll subscribe to the channel. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.